So yes, samadhi. Maitreya Bandhu earlier in the day was talking about hindrances or nivarana, the coverings, a better kind of way of thinking about them. And I want to sort of continue the theme of samadhi by, well, particularly I want us to start looking at the heart and involving metta into our practice, sort of regardless of whichever practice we're formally doing, whether it's a metta bhavana practice or not, whether it's mindfulness or just sitting or sadhana. To go deeper, to integrate deeper, we have to be involving the heart, which in a way, first of all, I think means involving the body, getting out of any head-based prapancha and coming first of all into the body. Before I think we can involve and engage our emotions. So just to sort of reiterate a little bit of what Maitreya Bandhu was saying, if we are in nivarana, in a covering, if we're in prapancha, it feels, it's really, really, first of all, important to acknowledge that that's what's happening. And then see if we can take our awareness away from the narrative, from the story of whatever's going on, whether that's a story of anxiety or a story of blame, whatever's happening. And it's really, really important that we start to experience the emotions in the body. I say emotions, that might just mean the Vedana around the torso. I mean, I particularly feel it's useful to focus on the heart center, the center of the chest and the belly. I mean, you know all this, but it's really, really important. I think the body is the sort of key to going deeper. And only then, I think, can we really engage the heart and soften in the way that Maitreya Bandhu was saying. As long as we're engaged in stories, it's very, very difficult to really soften and disentangle. The disentanglement that Maitreya Bandhu, or unentanglement that he was talking about, is partly letting go of the prapancha in the head and coming into the body. I think there are deeper levels of disentanglement, deeper levels of disidentification, but we'll come on to that when we look at prajna in the days to come. So I think coming down and staying in the body, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, is going to be essential to deepening into samadhi and then deepening into prajna, because it's here that our actual experience is happening. The thought-based stuff is normally past-oriented or future-oriented. And it's always self-referential. I say always, I think it's almost always probably self-referential. Somewhere there's a reinforcement of me going on in the narrative. But coming down into Vedana, into the actual experience, sensations of the body, brings us down into our experience without that past or future orientation. If we want to experience timelessness in prajna, we're going to have to start sort of feeling our direct experience in the body. So coming into the body again and again and again, and that of course takes effort. So we're looking in a way at this self-development or self-transcendence myth. It takes effort to keep noticing and coming back whenever we need to, but it is quite a subtle effort. It's an intelligent effort and it's subtle. It probably won't need very much. It's not a grit your teeth kind of effort. It has to be subtle in order for us to soften. So kind of, if you are of the temperament, I'm not on the whole, but if you are of the temperament where you get frustrated with yourself, then probably what you're doing is tightening somewhere. Then you can get frustrated with yourself further for not working, and then you kind of push and tighten further. You know, that sort of cycle that people can get into. Well, this sort of effort is much more subtle, it's much more intelligent, it's noticing what's going on and then being prepared to stay with the actual Vedana, which may be uncomfortable. On the other hand, you may find that they're not uncomfortable. As you soften, you may find pleasurable sensations. And that's another way of working to soften. If you come into the body and find some pleasure, or even look for pleasure, you can start to allow some space around the pleasure. It's not that you kind of zoom in on the pleasure. You bring awareness to it and then allow some space around it. And what it will do is it will spread out. It will spread through the sort of field of awareness that you open up. You can open up into the whole body and allow the pleasure to flow through. You could even imagine the breath, as it were, as it flows through the body, bringing pleasure into the body. If you can tune into pleasure, the softening happens. The softening happens automatically. And of course, what also happens is the heart opens. You know, the heart sort of opens. So keep looking for softening and keep looking for any pleasure associated with that softening. But of course, first of all, keep coming back to the body. Yes, so something then to say about metta. If we're doing that, if we're coming back to the body and we're focusing on normally the belly and the center of the chest, the heart center, then we're and we're softening and we're being, as it were, sensitive and patient with our experience, then we're already in the field of metta. I mean, or we're starting to approach our experience with an attitude of metta. Metta's far more likely, the heart's more likely to open, metta's more likely to unfold if we're being prepared to turn towards and stay with our experience with gentleness and patience. That's what I'm trying to say. So gentleness and patience with our experience in the body, that's already bringing a metaphor attitude. I think that's the attitude that we bring is really important. So again, I'm often teaching newcomers, and when we learn the metta bhavana, it's so easy to become goal-oriented and somehow think that there is this goal of universal loving kindness that I need to experience. And in that goal-oriented mode, it's very easy to somehow either ignore how I am right now, or to think that I've got it wrong, I can't do it. And to get impatient with my present experience. This is part of how we can get the myth of self-transcendence wrong. It's to bypass our present experience with this future-oriented goal. Either bypass it or to somehow think that we're having the wrong experience and get frustrated with ourselves or despondent or despairing. And I've seen many, many people, newcomers or relative newcomers, fall into that trap with metta bhavana. Whereas the art surely is to have the ability to stay present with our experience in the body, but have an orientation towards opening the heart, but not by ignoring what's going on, but tuning into it and being willing to be patient, to allow an unfolding. And that does take effort to stay present. It can take courage, even if what you're experiencing is unpleasant. It takes courage, but it's subtle. It's not going to be smashed through into metta. It's going to be, I'm going to be prepared to stay with what is, with an orientation of opening the heart into metta. So keep coming back to the body. I mean, you know this, as Maitreya Bandhu was saying, all of us know this. It's so easy to say and so easy to forget when we're actually meditating that this is what we need to do. We need to keep coming back to the body. We need to be prepared to stay with whatever is happening in the body. And that might be neutral. Remember, that might be that nothing much seems to be happening, in which case we need to be prepared to take an interest, even more, a sort of careful, patient interest in whatever Vedana is there. Even neutral Vedana has a subtle feeling tone to it. It feels like something. What does boredom feel like? It feels like something. So being prepared to stay with whatever is there, whether it's pleasant, painful, or neutral. Pleasure can open us up into a softening as well. So being prepared to look for pleasure. And of course, what I mean is pretty. I mean pretty in the body, or sukha in the body, a sense of well-being in the body. I don't mean, of course, I don't mean fantasy and more prapancha. So I mean a sense of well-being in the body, allowing that to broaden, soften. The breath can sort of massage that pleasure into the body. So with regulars, sometimes what I've been teaching, we developed a course at the LBC called Who Hates the Metta Bhavana, where we encouraged people who knew the Metta Bhavana and had been practicing for some time to, as it were, unlearn the practice. And it's a sort of course that goes over 6 weeks. So, you know, I'm just going to tell you the principle and let you find your way. The principle that we teach on this course is, first of all, learn to be receptive to your experience in the body, in the way that I've been talking. Learn to be receptive to what's happening. Get out of the head, come into the body, and learn to stay patient and gentle, and in a certain sense, non-judgmental. Of course, you need to notice what's happening. Am I in a hindrance or not? But not to be too quick to say this is wrong. You know, not to judge in that quick way. Being prepared to stay with what's happening. So on this course, what we teach is receptive awareness. It's quite simple. And for a while, for the first few weeks, in fact, for about 3 weeks of the 6-week course, I encourage people to forget about bhavana, to forget about cultivating metta at all, just so that they can learn to stay receptive. So what I encourage is that they bring themselves, the friend, you know, the neutral person, etc., to mind, but that they don't necessarily cultivate. Well, in fact, I ask them not to cultivate metta, but to notice what it is like to have this other person in one's awareness, in one's heart, and being prepared to stay with boredom or ill will or whatever happens, as long as we don't go into prapancha. Yeah? Just staying with whatever happens. And then after about 3 weeks of learning receptive awareness, we introduce bhavana, reintroduce bhavana to, as it were, complete the practice. But now, what I asked people to do is at each stage of the practice to not rush into bhavana, spend a good deal of time just staying receptive to what's happening. And then when we do introduce bhavana, to do it really subtly. So for example, encourage people to cultivate gratitude. Gratitude is a sort of antecedent to metta. If I'm in touch with gratitude, metta tends to arise. Or noticing just a sense of well-being for myself in my own body, and then imagining that for others. Just coming from a place of well-being. Then you can start to cultivate a sense of solidarity, but again, without trying to go into one's head too much. To stay embodied is the key. You can find subtler ways of working with bhavana if you've done the patient work of staying receptive. So obviously we're not doing a 6-week course, and I'm not here to teach you metta bhavana. All that I want us to do is remember that this receptive awareness is key, and that opening the heart is not something that you can just force. You have to be subtle and patient and gentle, and allow the heart to open, and for well-wishing and a sense of solidarity with others to arise. And if we do that, what we're doing is meditating with the attitude of metta, rather than trying to cultivate metta in a way that is rather hard and harsh. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So yes, so in a moment we'll have a break, and then we'll come back and do an open period of meditation. You may choose to do. I'd like us to bring metta into the practice explicitly in this way. You may choose to do the metta bhavana in 5 stages. You may choose to do a more open period of just sitting, but with metta in your experience, or something a bit more free-form. I'm not going to ring bells for the 5 stages. But what I really encourage us to do is remember to stay embodied, keep coming back to the body. That's in a way where the effort needs to be, and then be patient and gentle with whatever is arising, and then seeing if we can have an orientation of metta, of well-wishing, and looking constantly for a sense of softening in the body. One more thing perhaps I should say, I mentioned pretty and pleasure. I think that we need to be learning to become aware of subtle energy in the body. So when I say the body, I don't just mean, or I include the physical body, but I don't just mean the physical body. I mean the energy body as well. So how is the subtle energy in our body? Try to tune into that. So pretty might arise in that subtle energy body. Or indeed all our emotions will be felt in an energetic way. And if we can start thinking of our emotions as energies, well, I find that more useful. They are, well, it's not just more useful, they are energy. So if I'm in a hindrance, if I'm in ill will, it's a tangle of energy. It's a knot of energy. By letting go of the story, I'm already able to loosen some of that tangle, that vicious sort of circle of energy. But then by staying with it in the body and feeling it and being prepared to stay with it, I can start to bring release. And it's release that is what we're looking for. We're not trying to, of course, dampen the energy so much as transform it. So that might happen if you're in a, whatever state you're in, looking for the sort of energic qualities in the body. Sometimes people say, oh, I don't have any Vedana. I don't feel any Vedana in the heart center or in the belly. But actually there will be some sort of subtle energic sensations. I don't really know how to talk about the energy body, but hopefully hopefully we've all got a sense of it. For example, if you start to feel pretty, you can, obviously there's physical sensations, but also there's a sort of rush of energy, or there can be, and a sense of well-being that suffuses the body. Or if it's the opposite, say it's craving or ill will, the energy sort of is tightened, and there's a tightening in the physical body. So yes, looking for physical, well, Vedana, and then more subtle energic sensations.